Yeah, all 48 of us on the bus were pretty nervous. And as we pulled up in front of the barracks, it had been a long day. I'd flown out of Chicago to San Antonio, Texas, got off the plane, the bus took us to Lackland Air Force Base for a processing. We received a duffel bag, looks like that, and they filled that duffel bag with 3 sets of uniforms. You got your dress blues, you got khakis, and you got fatigues. You had 3 sets of shoes. You had your dress shoes, you had your chukkas, and your combat boots. And then you got hats and caps, and you got all of your hygiene stuff for shaving and everything that you needed. Then they ran us through a physical. When they got all done with that, they took us to the barber shop and shaved off every hair on my head. And every hair on the heads of these guys. You also got 3 caps. As I mentioned, one of them is a pith helmet. Because in Texas, in July, it gets up over 100 degrees. And so we were eating 8 salt pills every day to maintain all of the salt that you're sweating out. So we pulled up, all 48 of us, in front of the barracks. We get out, take our duffel bags, standing around, the bus takes off. We don't know what we're doing. We have no idea. Ahead of us was the barracks. It's 10 o'clock at night. Out of the shadows comes this rather formidable looking guy. And he has on a Smokey the Bear hat. I thought I'd give you an image of what Smokey the Bear hat looks like. Very smoky. And this guy came out with that hat on. And he moved toward us. All of us had a certain quaking. And he walked around us, didn't say a word. And then he stood in front of us and he said, "I'm Master Sergeant Wade. I'll be your drill instructor for the next 8 weeks. You may call me sir." Everybody said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Grab your duffel bag, make your way to the drill pad, and we're going to do some exercises before you go to bed." So we all made our way to the drill pad, and for the next hour, we did push-ups, we did sit-ups, we did leg lifts, we did burpee push-ups, which I had no idea what they were, we did squat thrusts, we did jumping jacks, until guys were heaving. And then at that point, he said, "Now you're ready for bed." 11 o'clock. A reveille is 4. So you're not getting a lot of sleep. I learned real quickly that it doesn't pay to be rebellious in the military. It does not pay at all. They have things like court-martial. They have their own set of rules. The Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. And they will prosecute you, and they will court-martial you, and they will send you to Leavenworth. So it doesn't pay to be a rebel. It really does pay to be submissive. In fact, none of the 48 of us who were doing all of those calisthenics thought at all about saying, "Hey, why do we have to do push-ups? I'm not good at push-ups. Can we do something else?" None of them said, "I don't go to bed and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Can I sleep until 6? Nobody did that. Everybody fell into line very quickly. And I learned for the first time in my life, as a young man in my 20s, what submission meant. You submit to the authority that is over you. How many of you are military, veterans or active duty military? Would you stand? We want to salute you. For your service. Here's a picture of me 49 years ago. We're talking stud. We're talking stud. Modified stud. Yeah. He was a very handsome man. I don't know what happened to him. Very handsome man. Well, what's what's the deal with submission? And is submission just a woman's issue? Is it just a wife's issue? Because we read in the Bible, wives, submit yourself to your husbands in everything. Of course, it also says, husbands, love your wife just like Christ loved the church. If you got that kind of love going, it's pretty easy to be submissive.
True.
It is. So if you have problems loving your wife, really loving her, not just sexing her up, I'm talking about loving her, then submitting to you is not a problem. Not a problem. Maybe it's a feminist issue. Maybe that's the problem with submission. After all, you got people like Gloria Steinem back when the feminists were first starting out, and she said, women need men like a fish needs a bicycle.
Yeah.
And Bella Abzug, another one of the pioneers in the feminist movement, said, if they can send one man to the moon, why can't they send them all? So feminism has given submission a bad rap. But I got to tell you, submission is a beautiful, beautiful term. The reason I say that is because Jesus was submissive to his Father, was he not?
Amen.
In everything. Not my will, but thine be done, O Lord. That God loves submission. His own Son rendered submission to the Father. His own Son was submissive to civil government. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Render unto God that which is God's. So it's a beautiful term. And he is our model for what submissiveness looks like. Well, is there ever a time for being not submissive? Is there ever a time for that? The answer is yes. If the authority that's over you is asking you to do something that is immoral, if they're asking you to do something that's outside the realm of their authority, there is grounds in the Bible for disobeying that kind of authority. Remember Peter before the Sanhedrin when they said, you can no longer keep on witnessing about Jesus Christ. Shut up! And Peter said, whether it's right to obey you or to obey the Lord, we cannot stop talking about what we've seen and heard. So do what you need to do to us. That's fine. We will not shut up. We will not be silent in that. Can you go back one slide, Rich? Yeah. Okay, keep going. Yeah, keep going. No, not back. Forward. There we go. Yeah, why is submission hard? The reason submission is hard is because it's rooted in humility. If you're going to be submissive, you've got to be willing to be humble. And that strikes at the root of our pride. Pride is the root and underlies rebellion. Think about the devil. Why did he wind up getting kicked out of heaven? His pride. I will, I will, I will, I will. 5 I wills in Isaiah 14. And he will ascend above the heavens and be like God. Pride is at the roots of rebellion. Humility is at the roots of submission. And I need to be willing to bend the knee. Do you know what I mean by that term? Bend the knee?
Yeah.
It means go down, bow down in submission to the one who's in authority over you. Rebels can't do it. But I can tell you that God honors that kind of submission. There we go. I want to give you my life verse. This is my life verse. I'm going to give you the first part of it too. My life verse is, you younger men, submit yourselves to the elders. Yea, all of you be in submission to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due season. One of the big issues in my life coming to Christ was pride. I don't need God's help. I don't need anybody's help. Thank you very much. I will get to heaven on my own merits. In fact, I used to believe if your good outweighed your bad, on the scales, you'll get in. Lie, 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 lie. That is a big fat lie, but you know what? A lot of the world believes that. A lot of the world believes if I do enough good, well, what is enough? You know, if it takes 1,000 good deeds to get into heaven, and you only did 999, sorry, grab the grease pole going down to hell. You missed by one. You missed by one. So that's the problem with good deeds and bad deeds. No, there's a fixed standard for getting into heaven, and that is faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and being cleansed and forgiven by the blood of the Lamb. Amen. That gets you into heaven. And that's the only way you get into heaven. There's only one way, and that's Jesus Christ and through the atoning death of the Lamb. Well, what is the Greek word? I know this is starting to sound academic, but the Greek word that is used over and over in the New Testament for submission and for submitting is hupotasso. Hupotasso. It actually is, it's a compound word, and it means hupo, under. If something is hupo, it's under. And then tasso means arrange or order. And it's what was used in the Roman army to call the troops to get into ranks. Hupotasso yourself into ranks. And that's what Jesus is saying to us. We are in the army of God, and Jesus is our commander, and he's telling us, get into ranks and follow me. Get into ranks and follow me. When you're in submission, Jesus can work mightily through you. When you're in rebellion, he's fighting you. God is opposed to the proud, gives grace to the humble. So if you're in rebellion and you're fighting God, you're not going to win, for one thing. You'll never win. But the other thing is, how are we accomplishing the will of God that way? You're not. To whom are we to be submissive? Well, let's start with some of the things that you and I have to be submissive to. It's not just for wives, and it's not just for women. It is for all of us in the body of Christ. We are to be submissive to civil government. Civil government. That means Caesar. We're to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, render unto God that which is God's. And there is a place for civil government to keep us from being chaotic as a society. We need civil government. And we should be praying for those in authority over us that God would give us godly leaders. Well, with civil government, bend the knee to those in authority over you. Pay all of your taxes. I'm not going to ask to raise a hand, but some of you probably have taken deductions you didn't deserve. Some of you haven't calculated enough or correctly. And you falsified your tax returns. I want to tell you, that's rebellion. Pay what you owe Caesar. Pay what you owe Caesar. Don't cheat. Sooner or later the IRS will catch you. And it ain't good. And then what about driving the speed limit? Some of you are coming up here and you're driving through Albany, and you're driving through St. Michael, and you're driving through Uppsala, and you saw it and I saw it. There are lower speed limits driving through those little towns, are there not? Yeah. Those towns, by the way, are speed traps. You know that, don't you? They are speed traps. When you drive through those little towns and it says, and you're going 55 and it says, lower your speed down to 25, you keep cruising at 55 right on through, assuming that they don't have much of a police force here anyway. They're not going to catch me. I want to tell you, when you're driving home on 94 tomorrow, and it says you can go 70, just set your cruise control for 70, get in the right lane, let all the yahoos pass you. The cops are waiting for them down the line. Just set your cruise control, stress out, and just relax, and make your way home by driving the speed limit. Let's keep going. To whom are we to be submissive? Parents? Some of you are still under the authority of your parents. Others, you're not under their authority, but you're always to honor your parents, right? Honor your father and mother, that your days may be long on the earth. So you're to honor your parents. How do you honor your parents? Two ways you can honor your parents. If your parents are great, and you love them, and they raised you right, you can honor them by delight. You delight to honor them. That's what Jesus, he delighted to do the will of his Father. But even if you had lousy parents, you had a dad that was abusive, or a dad that was neglectful and didn't even care and ignored you, or was absent, you still have a duty, do you not? You got to honor your parents either by delight or by duty. Either way, send them the cards on their birthdays and their anniversaries. Do the little things that you're supposed to do in honoring your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the earth. If you don't do that, you're in rebellion. I'm sorry, but you are. That's not submissive. Well, what about teachers, principals, and coaches? Yeah, you are to be submissive to them. They're an authority over you. And you might not agree with them. You may not like what they have to say. But submissiveness says, I'm going to do because I believe God can lead me through others. God can lead me through my teachers. God can lead me through my coaches. God can lead me through my principal. Let's keep going. What about employers? We're to be submissive to our employers and give them an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. We're going to do all the extra things because we're submissive to God first. God's going to lead us through our employer. What if you have a bad employer? Can't you rebel at that? No. Just because you disagree, unless he's asking you to do something immoral, illegal, or he's asking you to do something that's outside of his realm of authority. You work for the mayor of Minneapolis, and the mayor of Minneapolis says, I don't agree with the politics. We're not going to pay our federal income tax anymore. Okay, he's a little bit out of the realm of his authority in saying that. So that is something that can be set aside, and we still have to obey what God says. So, what about husbands? Is there ever a time for a husband to be submissive to a wife? Yeah. Yeah, there is. Church leaders, there is a place for being submissive to your pastor, giving him honor. Don't snipe at him and be cynical and sarcastic about him. And have preacher for lunch. No. Be submissive to him. And then finally, what about God? Bowing and bending the knee before God. Let's keep going. We'll move past those. Honoring your wife by listening to her. And honoring your wife by caring what she says and what she thinks. Refusing to criticize or be cynical toward your boss, leaders, pastors, wife, or parents. And then bending the knee before God in prayer. Phil talked about that. There's a place for bowing yourself before the Lord and submitting yourself to Him and saying, God, what do you want to do with my life today? What is your will for me today? And bending the knee before your wife if you've sinned against her, if you've hurt her. There is a place for getting down, brothers, on your knees and begging for her forgiveness. You ever done that?
Yeah.
I have. I hurt my wife. We've been married 50 years now. But boy, back when I was in my 20s and we were married and I was a new believer, I know I hurt her badly. And I had to get down on my knees and beg her to forgive me because I didn't want to get divorced no matter what. There is a place for submitting yourself even to your wife. Let's keep going. Bottom line, submission is allowing God to lead me through others. May God do the same through you and through me. Amen.